get what my life is under control and how we are living our life. And I don't need to be that person, but I can be a much more, dare I say it, organized and prepared person and mom and wife. And that has the ripples on the house and everything because of understanding it all.
Are you overwhelmed by motherhood and barely keeping your head above water? Are you confused and frustrated by how all the other moms make it look so easy? You can't figure out how to manage the chaos in your mind, your home, or your family. I get you, mama. Parenting with ADHD is hard. Here is your permission slip to let go of the Pinterest-worthy visions of organization and structure fit for everyone else. Let's do life like our brains do life, creatively, lovingly, and with all our might. When we embrace who we are and how our brains work, we can figure out how to live our lives successfully and, in turn, lead our families well. At the end of the day, we just want to be good moms, but spoiler alert, you are already a great mom. ADHD does not mean you're doomed to be a hot mess, mama. You can rewrite your story from shame spiral to success story. And I'll be right here beside you to cheer you on. Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. Hey there, successful mama. It's your friend Patricia Sung. Today, you are meeting 3 of the students currently enrolled in Time Management Mastery for ADHD moms. Jess, Mel, and Dominique are sharing with you their takeaways and aha moments and how their lives have changed over the last few months of working with me through this program. I wish I had better words to explain how proud I am of these 3 women, of all the students that were in the class this round. You'll hear how much their life is different, and a lot of it is in little ways that we don't even realize are struggling, that we're beat down and that we're tearing ourselves up. And you don't have to live that way. This is all here for you too. We can't take our ADHD away, but we can learn how to live with it well. And in this 11-week program, you will have the basics set for your daily, weekly, and monthly routines so that you can transform your home and your family life into a more peaceful and calm environment with less yelling and less stress. You can actually show up for things on time and be able to let go of some of that shame and doubt that is weighing on you, weighing you down because you understand yourself. You will learn to make decisions that you believe in because you believe in yourself and you know that this is the right thing for you to do. Because you understand how your brain works and you've worked through it in a way that makes sense. Today is the last day to sign up for Time Management Mastery for the February round, and I cannot wait to see how much your life has changed by the time the summer rolls around. Time Management Mastery for ADHD moms is an 11-week program where you will create a flexible framework for your day so that you can go from whack-a-mole problem solving to knowing exactly what you want to get done today and how you are going to do it. So be sure to sign up for the class at bit.ly/ADHD framework. That's all lowercase letters, ADHD FRAMEWORK. And now let's meet Jess.
In, say, 3 words, how would you describe your days before you started Time Management Mastery for ADHD moms?
Stressed, overwhelmed, and exhausting.
So if you were to compare that to where you are now versus where you are like about 3 months ago is when we started, how is your life most different?
I feel that now, you're never going to have perfect. You're never going to have the perfection that we always think that we can have. I have tools now. I understand myself so much better. I understand my brain so much better, why it's doing it. And the big thing is I understand how to work well with it instead of trying to force it to be something it's not. And I think that for so long is what was such the problem is that, as a mom, especially, you're trying to keep up with all the other moms that you think at least how they're, you only ever see the duck on the surface. You never see all the moms paddling furiously underneath, right? So every mom has her own story, but with ADHD, you always feel like your kids are never on time for school, like the clothes are all over the place and you feel like other moms are not like this and the head of the PTA and stuff like that, they know what they're doing. And you feel like, oh, I need to be like them. And your course has really helped me understand understand how I can just get what my life is under control and how we are living our life. And I don't need to be that person, but I can be a much more, dare I say it, organized and prepared person and mom and wife. And that has the ripples on the house and everything because of understanding it all. The courses that you do, you break them down so well. And I think we were all laughing the first or second week saying, when we first saw that like a chapter was like 3 minutes long, 6 minutes long, we were like, oh, I could definitely do more than this. But then you realize like, oh, I have to go pick up my kid from school or something. And it's really good that they are digestible moments in your day that you could be like, I'm just going to do this right now. Because we do the all or nothing and you think like, I'm going to do this entire week's modules right now, but you can just do a little and then come back and do a little more or something. So the way that you have broken it down, it's like you speak our language because it's your language too, you know? So every time you present another chapter, another module, you have a great way of looking at it and explaining it so that it makes sense. Because there's so many times out there, right? You hear all the people that are like, just do this for 30 days in a row. And then it's yours forever and it's your pattern. And like, that's never worked. And it wasn't until being in your course and talking with the other women and the modules from you, when we were discussing like, we have persistency, but we don't need to shoot for consistency all the time. And just because you don't have the consistency, it shouldn't knock you off your horse and make you feel like, well, I can't do it. Since I didn't do it then, what's the point? Which is what comes to your head, you know, but like the things that you taught have helped me understand the persistency and how that's a big superpower of mine. And then I've seen in other areas of my life, that persistency has gotten me so many places, even when I wasn't consistent about things. But the way that you explain it is really, it's really digestible. And all of a sudden it makes sense in a way that for 40 years now, I've been trying to make it make sense. Even to the point where a family member of mine said recently, you know, we were tidying things. And I was like, please don't put that away. If I don't see it, I'm going to go buy 8 more the next time I'm at the store because I don't remember it's there. And they were like, well, just write a list. And I was like, yeah. I'll write 5 lists this week. I'll forget where each of them are. And then I will just spontaneously show up at my grocery store without a list, without my grocery bags. And I'll be lucky if I have my wallet. So that's not a good, and it was like, well, and you know, they said, aren't you even going to try to be organized on this level? And previously, that's really where I would have been like, yes, I'm trying so hard. Yes, I'm trying to do it that way. And in that moment, I was like, that's not how my brain works. And there was a big release of just understanding what works for you really doesn't work for me. And I have to do it a different way. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. And understanding that I have to do it a different way and learning everything that I have with the time management course, a weight off my shoulders of trying to paddle the same way and understanding that there is a different way to do it that works for my brain and that's okay. So
would you say that would be your biggest aha moment or was it a different one?
I think that there have been a lot of aha moments actually. That's the most, like, honestly, you being able to speak this language and understanding it completely because you're in it. You're not just somebody who's studied it. And so then there you go, like, you know it. This is your life too. That, and then the community of women that you've built from your courses, they're all legitimately like-minded women. We're all built the same way, even though all of our lives look differently. We're at different ages of motherhood and all of this kind of stuff and what we're trying to attain for ourselves, you know, whether it's running our own business or working from home or going out into the world or just little kids at home or, you know, everybody discovering that no matter what they're doing, we all have these kind of same moments that feel so specific to us. And because they haven't been like anybody else in our life, right? So you're like, oh, that's just how I think. And then discovering that we all, I'm getting chills right now, honestly, because it's changed my life. Discovering your community that you've built has changed my life. And from day one, it was like a lightning bolt listening to your podcast, just realizing, oh, I'm not just quirky Jess. I'm not just eccentric, quirky, funny Jess. Like, those are all coping skills that I created to deal with my brain working in a world that is a lot of the time not set up for my brain and doesn't expect my brain to react the way that it does. So having those moments of camaraderie and understanding with women who, again, we're all very different life-wise, but we're all going through the same thing on a level. We have like the same sentence comes into our head in reaction to something. And you think that's just you. That's just the way that you're thinking. You're the only one who has problems there. And discovering that other people do too. And then how we come together and have been really supportive of each other and has been really amazing. Like the things that we've discovered through going through the course.
Yeah, it's funny because like a lot of times I think that like negative self-talk narrative is like we think it's just us that's broken, but
Yeah.
part of like, I mean, why I love every Wednesday is that when I see how there's a whole, I always call it like a room, but a Zoom room full of women that have the same thing. It's like clearly I'm not broken because there are 10 or 20 other women who are like, yeah, okay, I do that too, or I think that too. And it's like, oh, well, there's not, it doesn't feel like there's like this one-off thing wrong with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's a struggle, it's like, well, but it's not like, oh, well, that thing got chipped and it's messed up. Like, no, it's like, we are a different breed of human.
Honestly, that has been so refreshing and so comforting to realize after all this time, and especially like just going through the course, there's a lot of us in the kind of the same boat that are between like 30s and 40s, where we all have kind of been discovering actual diagnoses now, even though we all struggled with it in school. But sometimes boys were the only ones who were really being diagnosed because they're the ones hanging from trees. So if your body wasn't being hyperactive, they weren't really taking care of you, looking for the cracks that you were falling through, And because we are persistent and because we're crafty, we've all found these ways to cope and get ourselves through school and through the activities we don't want to be a part of, to the point where like you became an adult and you thought you grew out of it. I was legitimately told I would grow out of it, that I was just kind of borderline with it and I would grow out of it as an adult. And the truth is you just find things as an adult that you like. And so you can focus on those things better, right? Because they entertain you, or it's okay that you have 35 different jobs by the time you're 25, because who doesn't need 4 different jobs, coffee shops and bookstores and, sales and all that kind of stuff. You just find stuff that suits you. So it feels like maybe you've had a handle on it. But for me, honestly, and a lot of other women have spoken to this, we were all doing well. We had unorganized, eccentric lives, but they were ours. And then children came and just little by little kind of blew it all up, like all of our coping skills and stuff, because they have their own schedules and they do have legitimate routines that you have to stick to. Even if you're like, well, I'm going to be that loosey-goosey parent, like there are still things,
they still have to eat and sleep and
every day.
Why they need to eat so much.
So much eating. So, and then of course, recently the pandemic, it was like the final straw, I think, for a lot of people, where it was like, we really had to pay attention to our mental health as well. And it was really starting to crumble for me in my house. And, we're fun, silly people, my family, and it was getting less fun and less silly by the day because I just couldn't cope anymore.
What effect have you seen on your family now that you've started to implement changes? And I know we're still at the beginning of making things different, but how do you see that effect on your family?
Honestly, the more and more that we use all the things that I've been learning, the less yelling there is in my house, the more fun and silly is coming back. And of course, because it's genetic, my 7-year-old son, we're going through the process of formally diagnosing him, but he legitimately is just a miniature Jess running around this house. Like I can see that. And the more I implement things with him and speak to him the way I realize it would have been helpful to be spoken to myself, or the things that we've learned in class, then literally it's been really night and day. Like there's less crying, there's less meltdowns, and that's just from me. So there's more communication and understanding from my husband, who is not ADHD. And while he has always enjoyed my spontaneity with things and my ability to just kind of like, hey, yeah, let's definitely just get in the car and drive 3 hours to that natural park you want to go to. No big deal. National park. When it comes to, I got to take the kids to the doctor, I got to get the kids to school on time. Those are not things that I have been good at. And they have broken down. I have to have dinner ready at the end of the night because that's just where we are, and it's helped our communication so much better because I've been able to say, hey, I learned this about myself today. And it's not just quirky Jess or, wow, Jess is really bad at meal planning. It's so much more than that. And here are things I've learned to help us with it. And even the famous ADHD people understand time and now or not now, that was an aha moment to me. Through your course with the time management, just you having there was like a whole modules on getting ready for school in the morning doesn't take 10 minutes that you think you're going to block. Making breakfast doesn't take 10 minutes. Then there's also there's the prep, and then you eat the breakfast, and then you put that stuff away and then clean up, and just really breaking that kind of stuff down and understanding really what my day involves has helped so much, and implementing timers in certain places to do with that amount of time instead of what I think it's gonna take has changed the way that our house is running. And like I said, nothing perfect, and we're still at the beginning, and I have so much more to implement from the class that I have implemented for myself, but not like the whole house yet. And I'm really excited because I do feel very positive and confident that I have actual tools that will help my actual situation. They are like concrete takeaways. You know what I mean? Like that is for my life and nobody else's, and it's helping. It's amazing.
So what would you say to the mama who's on the fence about joining the course?
I would say that honestly, it's changed my life, and it's changing. I'm going to get all lose my mind now.
Oh, no, start to cry.
It's like literally the first night that I found you when I was listening to the podcast, I was reading your podcast while listening to another podcast while avoiding doing the dishes. And my children were in the other room watching TV, waiting for dinner. And so like all of the things were happening, and just reading a transcript from yours, I just started crying and was like, oh my God, this is my life. This is my life. And you were like, I hope this podcast really helps a mama out there understand that she's not alone and that it's not just her. This is for somebody right now. And I was like, oh my God, it's for me. And I called my husband crying, and I signed up for the course like that night. I was like, this is it. And I had never had anybody explain it to me like that. I had never recognized anybody else in the same boat in the same way, and been honestly that I feel seen, like it was like a big thing for us because my husband knows, everybody jokes that, I get excited about something for 2 weeks, my 2-week pipe dreams, and then I fall off, and then you don't care anymore. The last one right before your course was macrame. I feel like that was the last craft I had left to do in the pandemic. There was nothing else I hadn't tried. So I bought a bunch of macrame and made one macrame project. But this, for people who are worried, like, oh, I do lose interest or this, that, or the other, the Wednesday check-ins, like the group, because you have the morning group for the actual class. And then there's like a check-in with anybody who's ever been in your course forever and ever. And that is also this wonderful kind of security blanket to know that the other moms are there and that we're there for each other, and people really show up. And it's not like people always have things to share or talk about, but we're always there for the other person. And sometimes the person who was giving all the advice last week is the one in tears this week being like, I just hit a wall and I'm not sure. And everybody's there, So I would tell that mama who is thinking about it and not sure that it is absolutely worth everything. And it's life-changing, honestly, to understand that you're not alone and to understand that your brain really does work differently and you're not making it up. You're not lazy. You're not just bad at meal planning. You're not, you are a good person and you're a good mama because you're here trying to figure out how to make your life better, always creatively looking for something new. That's why we all have 45 planners in 1 year, because you're always trying to find what works, right? And this is the first thing in my entire life that has been applicable and been something that I keep going back to and that I still find refreshing and energizing, challenging in a fun way, supportive. It's amazing. It's absolutely worth it. It's life-changing. Don't make me cry.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna move along. Okay.
It changed my life. One day at the Academy Awards, they'll thank you. Or the Nobel Peace Prize. It's still up in the air which one I'm going for. Who knows?
Okay, either way, I need a shout out.
All right, mamas, now let's meet Mel.
Okay, in 3 words, how would you describe how your days were before you joined Time Management Mastery for ADHD moms?
I would have to say late for everything.
And exactly 3 words.
I have 2 others if you don't like that one. I
No,
have
that one is
and chaotic, and I have spinning my wheels.
I mean, those are all pretty good. And then how would you say your life is most different now compared to, like, it's been about 3 months since we started. So, we're still in the thick of it, of implementing everything, but how would you say your life is most different now compared to 3 months ago?
I can actually show up on time for appointments and events. It's rare if I'm actually 5 minutes late, where that was the norm before. I'm experiencing fewer stuck moments, the moments where you're just spinning your wheels and you're dealing with decision paralysis, knowing that you have a million things to do and not having a clue where to start or how to prioritize. what really needs to get done. There's probably not actually a million things. There might be 5 to 10 that are fairly urgent. And because of these changes, I have less wasted time, which is wonderful. And I spend less time feeling frazzled and upset with myself for running late.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we don't talk enough about is how much like we beat ourselves up when we don't meet our own expectations.
Oh, yes. I can spend a lot of time doing that.
I'm an expert, just FYI. What would you say would be your biggest aha moment from the course?
Biggest aha moment is realizing that having ADHD isn't all bad. In working with the mamas in the time management course, I was able to see that we all have challenges due to our ADHD, but also I think a lot of our strengths come from the way our brains are wired as well. And so it's really important to learn how to work with your ADHD according to what your strengths are, because it's probably helped you develop certain strengths: resiliency, persistence, empathy, creativity, sense of childlike wonder.
Which we need more of in our lives.
Yes. So I realize it's really important to be compassionate and curious about yourself and your ADHD and figure out what makes you unique, and also build your routines around what you value most, what is most important to you. Your schedule, your routine does not need to look like anybody else's, because it's going to have what's most important to you. That's what you need to be spending your time with. I mean, everybody's going to have chores that nobody likes to do. So let's get through those efficiently and then get to spending time with the stuff that's important and that feeds us,
Yeah, and that can propel us through all the stuff that nobody likes to do.
The grind, yes.
Yes.
And also, I know that as a mom, of course, moms would say, oh, what's the most important thing to you? Your family, right? It's got to be out top on the list. But a lot of times as moms, we don't realize that we are part of our family. We're an essential part. And we need to remember to take care of ourselves as well. That's part of taking care of the family.
So have you seen an effect on your family in how you've changed things in your life?
Specifically would be the evening routines and the dreaded morning routines. We have worked out a bedtime routine in the evenings now that's much less chaotic, less frustrating. I'm not running around yelling at the kids, gotta get to bed.
Yeah.
We start at a certain time now and people know, hey, this is what you gotta do. This is the goal. We're getting in bed at this time. And, at first I was afraid that I would get so much pushback, like, oh, we don't want to go to bed yet. But you know what? I think they actually appreciate having this mapped out and they feel more relaxed and ready for bed. And it helps with the morning as well. For the mornings, I used to dread getting up in the morning because it was just a mess, a frantic mess trying to get my kids ready and to the school bus on time. Now, we've mapped it out. We have a plan and we follow the plan. And most of the time, they are able now to get to the bus on time. And it's made a huge difference because it's so much easier to set like a positive intention for your day if you're not like just running and rushing and then having to drop everything and drive your kids into school because they missed the bus again.
Especially like you got 2 kids on 2 different bus schedules. So that's even more of a disaster when you get off track. So
definitely.
Okay. So if there's a mom who's like on the fence, like, I don't know, should I do this? What would you tell her?
I would tell her that she really should join our motherhood and ADHD community and take the time management course. There is so much love and support and super practical advice from all the mamas with ADHD, and it's just waiting for you. And it's always available too. It's not like you take the course and then see ya. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You can come and join us and talk through your difficulties. And it's been really amazing to find a community of moms that have ADHD that understand what's difficult in managing your ADHD and your little ones.
Yeah.
and they are so helpful in working with you. There's no judgment. There's no competition.
Yeah.
There's just support.
Yeah. And I think having like everyone's inputs, like we all have figured out enough coping mechanisms at this point to get through most of life. And when we put all of our brains together, it's like anytime someone has a question, like somebody usually has a suggestion. Like I'm trying to think, like, I don't think there's ever been a day where somebody was like, nope, got nothing. Like somebody has figured out something that worked for them and can share it. So it's not like me sitting here spouting the whole time. It's like all the moms chip in. It's like, okay, I got a solution for that. Or like, hey, no, I don't have a solution, but I'm there with you. Like, it's just such a good.
Or if they don't have a ready solution, they can definitely commiserate with you. Like, oh man, I remember what that was like. That was such a hard time, if you want to talk about it, we're here to listen, share what it was like for us. And you don't have to feel alone. You don't have to feel like you're defective. There's so many people that are struggling with the same sort of things, and they are overcoming and like really great moms.
Oh, I'm like a little group.
And last but not least, we're going to meet Dominique, who's also in time management mastery for ADHD moms.
So in 3 words, how would you describe how your days were before you joined time management mastery for ADHD moms?
Well, my 3 words would probably be whack-a-mole. It just felt like everything was popping up all over the place and everything was equally as important and urgent.
And, pandemic life aside, how would you say your life is most different now compared to where you were a few months ago?
I think the biggest thing for me is at least having an idea of how to structure it so that it's not whack-a-mole as things come up. I kind of have a rough idea where in my day or my week or month I might be able to slot those things into in a way that actually makes sense, and a way to kind of look at it a little bit more objectively and figure out what actually matters right now.
And what would you say was your biggest aha moment during the course?
What resonated most with me was probably the idea of separating the task list into buckets as opposed to just a straight up list where everything is equally prioritized, kind of being able to look at my week or my day in chunks and segments of what might belong together. And for myself, I do work at home. I run my own business. So it's hard to always separate mom life, home life, business, especially being my desk is literally in the middle of our kitchen.
Yeah, it's hard to keep things separate when physically they are not separate. I think that's one of the hardest parts about working from home for me too, is that your life is fully entrenched in home. And when you love what you do, it's hard to like say, hey, I'm not going to do that right now. And I'm going to do home stuff, but I'm still at home, which is also where I do work stuff.
For sure. Because often I'd actually rather do my work stuff. I'd much rather hop into Canva and do some graphic design than do dishes or figure out what's for supper.
Yeah. Way more interesting than cleaning or laying new plants. Okay. So how would you say you've seen, or if you've seen a difference at all in how your family life is now that you've started to make changes? It's not like an overnight thing, like, oh, I completed the course and voila, my life is totally different now. Like it's a process that we're continually working on. Do you see any difference in how your family is? And what would you say is different now?
At this point, quite honestly, I can't say there has been a huge difference, but that's mostly because just where we are in life right now, coming through the holiday season, the pandemic is wreaking havoc again here. We're back to virtual learning, yada, yada, yada. Nothing is as per usual at the moment. But even within that chaos, I haven't been sucked into the chaos this time, not because I've implemented what I've learned in the course, but because I know that there is an alternate way. And once things do settle a little bit, I have the tools to be able to put those pieces back together. So it's more my mindset has shifted as opposed to implementing at this point.
And I want to emphasize that that's okay. Like a lot of moms right now are still in this like chaos mode of like having kids home that you're not expecting and life just not looking like, one, like we thought it would, and two, like what it will look like always. Like it's hard with ADHD to see where the future is. Like we feel the now very heavily, and it's hard to picture it being different. And so when we're in these hard times, like now my little kids are home with me every day when I was expecting them to be in school. I had a different plan for what this was going to look like. It's hard for us to see that that's going to be different.
Yeah,
soon.
for sure.
Like that now feels very forever-y.
It does. And yet I think that's one of the big things that have changed for me in going through the process of your program is that it doesn't feel as forever-ish. I feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel, even if I'm not able to put that in place yet. I feel like I might be able to put the pieces back together later on.
Yes. And the good part about the meetups are every week, like they keep going. So, when you're in that rough patch, it's not like, well, I missed the boat. Now I don't get to do it. And it's just done. It's like when life starts to get back on track, you can still come back and rejoin and have people with you that understand and still have that like support there to keep going. So it's like, okay to take a little break and be like, hey, January did not look like I thought it was going to look like.
Yeah. And the weekly groups have been great. It's so great to connect with other women that are experiencing the same things. It's just so great to have that community and not feel alone in struggling. And that's been also huge in reducing like the guilt and shame of not being able to juggle everything right now. When everything all fell apart when the pandemic started, I very much felt like, well, first of all, I felt like I was failing all over the place. But then a few months into the pandemic, that's when I was diagnosed with ADHD. Everything started to make sense. But at that point, then I felt like I was struggling because I had ADHD. Now I'm realizing that pandemic parenting is just making it hard to manage my ADHD. I'm not the problem.
Yeah, this is unlike anything that has ever happened, that we ever could have imagined. Like, it's not nothing. This is a big deal. And it's like, I'm like, I want to give you like a big hug. Like, this is really hard. And we're not meant to do this alone. And where you are right now, you're doing a lot of this alone.
For sure.
And that's not how we're meant to parent. That's not how we're meant to live, like in community. Like we were created to be people in community, not hermits. And that makes parenting really difficult. So it's not just that you can't pull it off. It's not that it's just, oh, well, the ADHD rearing its head. It's like, this is a huge thing that is stressful and difficult. And I'm like, it's not you. It's not
yeah.
you.
Yeah. And
really
I definitely
hard.
feel that now that it isn't me. The ADHD adds an extra layer, but I'm still not the problem. The problem is everything else that's going on that's making it difficult for me to work with the ADHD.
Yeah. And I guess like I'll give a little background to the moms who are listening. Like Dominique's in Canada, in an area where they shut down schools again. So they're doing virtual school again. And there's 100 feet of snow. So she can't leave the house. So it's just like all the things layered on top of each other where you get like, hey, I can handle 2 unexpected things, 3 unexpected things. And then when you start hitting this like 7 and 8 unexpected things, all of a sudden, like that's not realistic to expect ourselves to be thriving. Like this is the point of like, we survive. We make sure everybody ate something today. We figure out what's the bare minimum. That's what we talked about on Wednesday support group. Is like, what is the bare minimum? Like when you're in these days of like, this is awful and I'm struggling, what's the bare minimum that has to get done?
And I would say that's been a valuable part of working through your program and system as well, is even if I haven't implemented everything and got it moving along the way I want to, it's given me the space and the ability to really look at what is the bare minimum, because I would define that significantly different now than I would have at this point last year. Because now the bare minimum is, okay, we are out of bed, we're home, we're safe. Mm-hmm. We've all been fed. And quite honestly, right now at this moment, both my kids have their face glued to a screen, and I was not okay with that a year ago. I'm okay with that now because it's okay. We're meeting our bare minimums.
Yeah. I mean, when it's like -40 out, it's not like you'd be like, hey, go run around.
No.
There's a different level of expectation.
For sure.
And so that makes me very happy that you are giving yourself that grace.
And it's broken down those barriers of perfectionism for sure, because my perfectionism before was 10 million things on my to-do list. And if I missed one of them, I hadn't actually obtained what I needed to do. Whereas now having kind of the structure and framework in my mind of, all right, this is what actually has to happen today. We need to eat, we need medication, whatever, we're going to do what we do. It's given me that mental space to let go of some of that perfectionism. I think I had even mentioned to you a few weeks ago, I sent out my Christmas cards, maybe the second week of January this year. And I intentionally bought Christmas cards that did not say Merry Christmas. They said, like, I don't know, 'tis the season or Happy New Year or something, because I basically gave myself permission in November to not stress about getting them out on time. And I used to be like, if they're not in the mail December 1st, we have failed if they are not out on time. So just again, coming back to prioritizing like what actually matters right now and what's going to send us into a complete spiral and what really doesn't matter, like getting the Christmas cards in the mail on time.
Yeah, I love that example because, maybe if you're not a Christmas card person, that's okay. But like when that's something that's part of your family tradition and that's like a holiday thing that you want to do, when you give yourself that flexibility, it's like, now this is a fun part of the holiday. Now this is like a joyous part of like, I mean, I love getting mail. I have all my Christmas cards hanging on like our French doors in the back of the house. And I look at all of them quite often. Like when we're sitting at our kitchen table, I can see them all. And they are a very like happy feeling thing to me. Mm-hmm. But when they are like that source of stress, another thing you have to do, you're beating yourself up for it. It's like, it takes all that joy out of it.
For sure.
So that's a beautiful example of giving yourself grace and being okay with how it turns out, but also the fact that you like from the get-go knew this is something I want to do, but it doesn't have to be December 1st to be a success.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so proud of you.
That was huge because my husband even noted like 9 years ago when we got together and once we got married and that, not only did they have to be in the mail December 1st, they were like the most beautiful handmade cards ever. And production, the way he puts it, production started in October. And like he couldn't believe that we've now moved to A, they weren't handmade cards. I was good with a photo, and B, that we mailed them in January. So he says, thank you.
So when I go back to my original question of have you seen the effect on your family?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
There's definitely those types of things for sure.
It's not what you originally thought was going to be the picture of success.
Yeah. That's
because life happened. But to me, the fact that made your husband really happy and proud of you, like that to me is more important than.
Yeah. And I would say, you know what, when you put it that way, there's definitely been a shift. There's been lots of conversations between him and I, even looking at like what actually does matter and what do I think matters and what does he think matters to get done? Because what I think should be done daily, there's some of it he's saying, heck no, that's a weekly or a monthly thing. So it's been good to open the door of discussion of what actually is our household expectation. And also just in realizing that, oh, maybe he's not trying to be a pain in the butt when he doesn't do something. He just doesn't think it needs to be done daily, and kind of negotiating some of that as well.
I like that. Negotiating. There's a lot of negotiating in relationships. Okay. So last question for you. What would you say to the mama who's on the fence about joining the course?
I would say if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like everything is just too much and there's no balance between anything that's going on in your life, if you need kind of a structure to put the pieces together, the course is well worth the investment. At some point in one of the modules, you use the example of dumping out the puzzle pieces and then putting the chunks together to rebuild the puzzle. That part has really resonated with me because that's exactly how I feel. I felt like the box was dumped all over, being shooken, but now there are those chunks that we're working to put together. And quite honestly, it also feels like there was maybe some pieces of a random puzzle in there too that didn't really fit.
So we sorted out some of the garbage.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been really good to at least have that mental framework. And I'm looking forward to, once things resettle, being able to actually put the pieces into play. I've had a lot of thinking time. I need the doing time now.
That's a good deal. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing. I really appreciate it. I know it's not easy to share your struggles sometimes, but I want moms to know that you can figure out a way to successfully run your own business from home as a mom, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that it does take us time to figure out what makes sense for us. And, you know, pandemic life doesn't always,
it doesn't go as planned ever.
I mean, life never goes as planned, but like this, there's like an extra, like, it's not just dumping on the puzzle pieces, like your kid just kind of like threw them up in the air like confetti. And now you're trying to pull them all together and find the ones that are under the couch and in between the cushions. So it definitely didn't go as planned, especially where you are with the weather and the shutdowns and all that. But to hear the differences in your relationship, like that,
yeah,
it means a lot. So thank you.
And you also mentioned in there, like having the business and working from home and all those extra layers. And I know that's not the intention of the program and the framework, but I do plan on using kind of the same framework and layout to restructure how I'm running my business days as well, and creating those buckets, putting the pieces together, because that also just very much feels like whack-a-mole, just trying to check the things off my to-do list. Whereas I realize now, if I could use that exact same framework, I can create those buckets of the tasks that I need to do within my business and figure out what's a daily, weekly, monthly kind of thing. And that way, when my husband says, hey, head to the coffee shop and go work for a few hours tonight, take a break, I might actually have an idea of what I'm supposed to be doing when I go out that evening, instead of, okay, my laptop's open and not sure what I'm going to do. So I'm going to scroll Facebook for 45 minutes. I'm going to order a coffee, and then maybe I'll finally get to work, half an hour before I'm supposed to leave.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's what our brains do, is that when we aren't sure where to start, our brain finds something that it can do. Like, it knows it should be doing something. So it picks, like, what can I do? Oh, I can order coffee. I can look at Facebook. Like, your brain's like, okay, I'm doing things. I know how to do these things.
Yeah.
I'm getting going. And a lot of times we do need that startup process. But when we go in knowing our plan, it's like, I sit down and I already know that I need to send like these 4 emails, then our brain will get there faster than if we still may end up scrolling and getting coffee, but we move a lot faster when we know what to do. Usually our brain goes to that, like, what else am I doing? Because it doesn't know what to do. So it picks the easy thing.
Right.
When we know what to do, our brain doesn't spend so much time panicking.
For sure. Yeah.
And for those of you who have your own business or work in corporate, I would be remiss in not telling you that I did a Pinterest VIP day with Dominique, and it was awesome. It was exactly how my ADHD brain needed to lay it out. I highly recommend checking her out. You can find her on Instagram at Pinning with ADHD.
Yeah, I do Pinterest management and strategy for coaches, service providers, and moving quickly into working with quite a few podcast hosts as well, which is awesome. I love it. And Pinterest can be a huge traffic driver in your business to increase your website traffic. And in time, you're likely going to find Pinterest is driving more traffic than your social media platforms for your podcast. I can't wait to see what happens.
Okay. Lightning round questions. You don't have to explain anything, just fill in the blank. The best thing that I've read or listened to recently is?
After you, I found Glennon Doyle.
Oh yeah, her podcast.
Yeah, and it's her newest book. It's the one that comes with a journal. I don't have the journal.
Untamed?
I think it's The Untaming, right? I think it's that. I listened to the audiobook. It was great.
The LeVar Burton Reads podcast. They're short stories and they're usually speculative fiction. So a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of philosophy, and they're really intriguing. And they're short, so it's not like you've got to divide it up for several days. I love listening to his voice, and it's really a great way to relax before bed.
Honestly, the best thing I've read or listened to is Reels and TikToks. They've given me a ton of jumping off points to go and do a little bit more research.
My most boring about me fact is?
I really love BBC television from the 70s and 80s that stars all the people who are in their 60s. I love it. I love it. Are You Being Served? All that kind of stuff. It's great. Nobody else likes it.
I love jigsaw puzzles.
I really do very, very little. I'm at home all day, every day, and go pretty much nowhere.
When I'm having a rough day, my go-to quote, song, poem, book, activity, whatever is?
Right now, it's the entire music from Tick, Tick, Boom, which was amazing and is totally jazzed me, especially as an artist. And then Jukebox the Ghost, Fred Astaire, the song Fred Astaire by Jukebox the Ghost. I saw another ADHD guy was dancing around on Instagram. I think you reposted it. And that song is great. If you're down, put that on, get in the shower, do some dance. I mean, some safe dances in the shower, but dance in the kitchen, in the car. That song is fun.
Yoga.
Don't worry about failure. Worry about the chances you miss when you don't even try.
Okay, don't tell anyone I.
Cuddle with my cat way too much during the day.
Didn't get my driver's license until the third try.
Listen to a lot of extremely explicit and inappropriate rap music when my kids aren't around or I have my headphones on.
If I had a magic fairy wand for one spell, I would.
Just make it so that I don't have to meal plan. I can do breakfast and lunches. I just don't want to think about dinner ever again.
I would just love if everyone could just get along. That's all I want.
Have my house clean all the time.
And my best piece of advice for mamas with ADHD is?
To be kinder to yourself and understand that it's real. It's not made up, and you are trying and you are doing great. And find a community, find people who support you. Find Patricia. And come on in, the water's fine, but you're doing good. Give yourself a break because there's so much to it that we didn't know before. And that the past couple of years is coming out more and more. And it really has an effect on your entire life. It's not just about paying attention when people talk or tell you their names and then you completely forget them. It's so much more. So be nice to yourself. You're a good person.
Thank you so much, Jess. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm going to cry. I'm going to go sing a song from Tick, Tick, Boom and cry.
Work with your ADHD. It's not a deficit.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be a deficit. You can do great things and have ADHD. Definitely.
Well, thank you, Mel. I so appreciate you and I'm really proud of you. I hope you're proud of yourself too.
Thank you, Patricia. It's always a joy to talk to you.
Learn about it, find out all that you can about it, and start to embrace it instead of fight against it.
All right, Mama. This is it. The last day to sign up for Time Management Mastery for ADHD moms for this round. If you're saving up, keep your eye out in the spring. We'll have another enrollment then. But if you're ready, I hope you jump in now and don't put off changing your life. You deserve to feel good about your day. You deserve to have the headspace to have a snack with your kids and truly be present with them and listen to their day without panicking about what's for dinner or what you didn't get done. There is a way to set yourself up so that you can live well with ADHD. So head over to bit.ly/ADHD framework. That's bit.ly/ADHD framework and sign up because today's the last day. Otherwise, hop back on that wait list if you listen to this episode later, and I'll be sure to let you know when the next round opens up in the spring. I'll talk to you soon, Successful Mama. For more resources, classes, and community, head over to my website, motherhoodinadhd.com.